All right, continuing off the last one with the divided surface and the floating panels, I'm going to show you how a little frustration, why that same panel that we just did worked when we were on the what we'd consider a roof or a floor surface, but it will not work when you're on a wall or a vertical surface. And it's because of the rules that we set within the panels. And we said, let's say the floating box, no gap, we'll see that it fails. It only fills in a few pipes that aren't there. And we see that where there are ones, a lot of them are very thin because it's using the 4 points, and we said use global Z. Now the thing happens that when we don't use global Z, it starts using the surface itself or the instances, which means we don't get the same control or projection. So although it seems like these should be the same two panels, we got to think of it as we created one, this one over here, with the logic of an elevator. We think when we made this, we have like an elevator car here, right? It's always just going to go up and down, and it's staying on those rails. An elevator can't then turn and become a drawer. That makes sense. The drawers coming in and out. What we need here are drawers. So little frustration. Yes, there are times if I was doing this where it was a surface that was really going and then folding up on itself, I would probably be loading in these two and then picking and choosing when it got to uncomfortable situations on which ones that I would want. So what I'm going to show you is how I build the other one that would actually work on this surface. So quick look at it. It looks similar, but instead of having the rails going vertical based on the global Z's, I'm actually using the vertical plane to set the rails out. Now this one, I didn't build the gap into it, so we're going to rebuild this so I can also get the frame gap around it in case I want it. Okay, so I'll start just by deleting everything that doesn't come in the pattern based. So everything's empty. And I'm going to start by going point SW, but here I'm grabbing the one facing this direction, again SW this one, again SW this one. We'll grab all three of those, filter, okay, and I'll set them off. I think I'll do just like 50 feet should be fine. So shot those 50 feet out the front. Again, I'm going to do that again, SW. And I hope everybody kind of is picking up. I'm putting 50 or 100 feet out on these. It's the idea that I don't know how much of change, the rate of change that I'm going to have, or the scale of these, and if because we're using them as rails, if the rail ends, we can't move beyond that, right? So I'm just having ridiculously long rails. That way I have the ability to move them as far as I want, or have the wall change as much as I want. So the same way I've got those pieces out, we can grab one of these and we see that it moves with it. I move these two up just so we could visually see what's going on, because this is going to fold on itself when it's laying flat. It only works when this is vertical. So reference line, 3D snapping's on, again making my rails. And I didn't put one through this bottom left one right here because, again, that's going to be my actual gauge point, right? And so remember in the other one, we set points on these rails, but instead of controlling their distance the way we would normally do it through a parameter here, we're saying we're going to host by intersection with this plane. Got it in line, grab this one, host by intersection, got it in line. Now, just for ease, because this only goes up and down, and right now they're going to be lined up because of this grid, but in the world, in the wall, you might not be lining up. We want the connection to be to this point. But if I host with intersection with this, it's going to put it right there. Because I want to make sure I'm on that point, I'm not going to host that with intersection until after I've created my object. We'll see what we reference line. So now I'm building my surface, reference line, okay, and then reference line. Does this make sense? That point's going to be intersected there, but I'm not doing it yet. I put my points on the same way we did before. 1, 2, 1, 2, so I can get my, change this direction, so they're both going from ends, change that direction, grab them all, and segment length, and I already have a parameter set up. No, I don't have a parameter. Frame. Okay, now those are all the same. Again, reference line. And points. Switch that direction, and grab all of them. And again, tell them segment length and the same thing, and now my frame. Of course, if you wanted a thicker frame at the bottom, the top, or whatever, you could of course make different parameters and set these inside and outside different. So now we've got our control points, reference line, 1, 2, 3, 5. Although it seems strange, it seems awkward, I'm just going to create this form right now. And its thickness, I'm going to set to a parameter. Okay. All right. Now, this isn't aligning the way I want yet, so I'm going to come back in and say I can actually just grab the point that's hosted on there, say host by intersection, and grab that. That's fine. Okay. So the goal is that later we know that it'll always be adapting to what it needs. Now I'm going to save this and load it into family. So now if I grab this, I should be able to use, I enabled it wall projection. Now, I think my edge offsets are a lot, so I'm actually going to go into the type. Actually change the frame to like, say 2 inch, so it's just be a small little gap everywhere. Okay, and actually I'm going to reload it because I think some of those were just deleted because I'm just going to go negative. No pattern for a second, and then reload it. All right, there we go. So now we're getting that projection happening perfectly back. Now, in the same way, see how both of these lines are responding to the form? I've got another wall over here where I have the verticals responding to the grid the same way I had in there. So I use the intersections on this wall. So watch what happens when I use that same wall projection. Now, the horizontals are being controlled by the curve, but the verticals are all staying in line. You see where those, and all of a sudden, if I had a grid line that was important to me, actually, you know, we see how these things are all lining up because I use the same grid through both, where here they're both just adapting to the form, the surface, right? So really interesting little use of that. This one's interesting because it's kind of a slant. We got one going, you know, these projected up, but if I switch it, both will work. You're just going to get a different response with it. So these were projecting out, so you're getting it tight this way, controlling by these. The other one was from the top. So you got to kind of pick and choose what you want to do. You can always come back in and let's say, because these are getting so flat, but I could actually come back in and tab, grab that one, tab, grab that one. Let's grab those. And let's say floating box, no gap. And we could start to build different bases that are responding to it. So these were projecting down the way the other ones were. All right. So just to recap, the The elevator, in essence, these were all set to global Z. I forgot to mention something, but there's still just one point, and then it's host by intersection on rails that we created, right? So that was, if it's in essence a roof form. If it's a wall form, then I use the vertical work plane on each one to then project rails out and move them around. Again, it's still just one that's controlling everything. That's the distance that's being controlled. Now, I did for this one, the other way to get it to work is to go to full global X, Y, and Z. Because we actually want people, if you don't do global X, Y, and Z and you do host, we do host X, Y, Z, then it doesn't project level. So global X, Y, Z is holding all of those coordinates correct. So that was the one trick. So horizontal one, all of these had to be global X, Y, Z, whereas the vertical one, these were, oops. These were all global Z, then host X, Y. So little bits.